Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Halloween week. I hope you are enjoying the week so far. If you are, please hit that subscribe button and leave me a comment down below. But today's video I'm actually really excited about because it's a little bit different than my typical murder cases. Today I want to talk about the real life situations behind a few urban legends that maybe still haunt us even into our adult life. Now, a few of these topics may ruffle a few feathers, and I apologize about that, but I kind of need to talk about them. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. The first one being a little silly. The first urban legend I want to talk about is one that I found online that I don't think pretty much anybody is familiar with unless you live in this very specific region of Virginia, and that is the urban legend of the Bunny Man. Like I said, it's a little silly and I don't even know what to think about it, honestly. The legend of the Bunny Man is the idea that a grown man in a bunny costume with bunny ears on the top of his head runs around in the middle of the night in the general area of this specific bridge and attacks people with a hatchet. Now, this legend stems from two very real situations that did happen to people, and one situation that I don't necessarily know that can be tracked down, in reality at least. So I'm going to talk about the very real situations, and then I'll touch a little bit on the not so real situation. So the first incident happened in 1970. It was October 9th. So these didn't technically happen on Halloween. Sue me. October 9th, 1970, a U.S. Air Force cadet was in Fairfax County, Virginia with his fiancée visiting his uncle. Now, at some point in the night, they were driving around and they decided to stop in an open field for some reason. So at some point, they noticed something moving in the rear view mirror, and before they even had a chance to figure out what it was, literally seconds later, something flew through the passenger window, broke it all over the Air Force cadet's fiancé, and they quickly put the car into gear and they drove off without even thinking about what could possibly have just come through their window. As they drove away, they heard a man yelling, "You're on private property and I have your tag number." After speeding away, the cadet, Robert Bennett, realized that the item that flew through his window was a hatchet that was now laying at the passenger floorboard. They quickly booked it to the police station, where Robert told police that he saw a man in a white bunny suit with white bunny ears on his head. However, it's worth noting that his fiancée actually stated that she did not see bunny ears. She said she saw on his head a capriote. I'm pretty sure is how you say it. I looked it up multiple times on Google Translate, which is basically the creepy hooded thing that the KKK wears. I'll put a couple of images here so you can kind of see the idea. So yeah, there's a little bit of back and forth of whether or not it was actually a bunny man. The second incident happened just 10 days later on October 29th. The security guard of a construction zone named Paul Phillips approached a man that he saw at one of the unfinished homes in the construction zone. The man was said to be dressed in a black and white bunny costume. And Paul said that after the man noticed him, he started wildly swinging his hatchet and hacking away at the roof supports of the porch he was on, and was yelling that Paul was trespassing, and if he came any closer, he would chop Paul's head off. Paul quickly ran to his car to get his flashlight and gun, and after returning, the man had disappeared. Several news articles were actually written about these incidents and quickly spread the idea that there was a bunny man that was crazy and running around town attacking people with hatchets. Both police investigations ended with absolutely no evidence ever being found. Now, I do quickly want to talk about the maybe not so real legend behind the legend. I saw it mentioned many, many times, but the story has since been debunked by investigators. There is the story that on Halloween night, a bus full of mental institution patients were being taken away from a nearby institution that was being shut down when the bus crashed, and all of the inmates that survived the crash scattered into the woods. All of the inmates were found except for one. After police spent many nights in the woods trying to find him, they eventually ran across a bridge that along the bridge were hung the carcasses of dead and half-eaten bunnies, and they ended up finding a trail of these all throughout the woods as well. It was later found that this patient, I put those in air quotes because I don't think he's real, was actually a man who had been placed in the institution after murdering his entire family on Easter Sunday. Now, police and investigators and historians and all that have completely debunked this story, saying that there was no institution in this time period that this story says. There was no such man, there was no such crash, it was not a thing that happened, but I did see it pop up many a times in my dive into this urban legend, so I thought I would put it out there. Next up is the idea that Halloween candy given to children will be filled with poison or sharp objects by psychopathic neighbors. And this is the topic that I do think might ruffle a few feathers. This myth has been touted year after year by the media and local community officials alike, like church leaders and school principals, even though there are no actual substantiated cases of this ever happening. All of the reported cases of candy being poisoned were later found to either be hoaxes, cover-ups, or done purposefully by a family member. The only real case I've found of this idea is in 1959, a deranged dentist handed out around 450 pieces of candy that were coated in a chocolate laxative, and around 30 children ended up getting sick. However, none of them came anywhere near dying. In 1970, a 5-year-old in Detroit died after ingesting a large amount of heroin. After testing his Halloween candy, police found that almost all of it was covered in heroin. However, police later learned that the child had actually accidentally gotten into his uncle's drug stash, ingested the candy, and the child's family sprinkled the drug all over his Halloween bag in order to make it seem like he had picked up the candy from a complete stranger. In 1974, an 8-year-old boy in Texas died after eating a cyanide-filled pixie stick. This is actually the case referred to as the man that killed Halloween. This was eventually found to have been given to him and 3 other neighborhood children by the boy's father, Ronald O'Brien. Ronald had purchased a hefty life insurance policy on his children just days before Halloween and had given out the pixie sticks to his son and his daughter and a few of their neighborhood friends in order to make it seem like it was somebody else in the neighborhood, and really took police on a massive trail that led to absolutely nothing, and time after time it made himself look like an idiot. If you want a full video about this case, let me know down below. I would be happy to oblige because I actually find this case really fascinating and I've known about it for a very, very long time. And I think about it a lot actually, which I don't know why, but thankfully none of the other children that were given this pixie stick ingested it. They all chose other pieces of their Halloween stash instead. Other cases in the very early days of trick-or-treating reported that kids died of poison candy when in reality they were dying of allergic reactions or infections or even in some cases meningitis. Now, reports of sharp objects in candy or other edible items are more common, but just by a hair. According to one report I found, since 1959, there have been just 80 cases of some sort of sharp object being placed in food. And still, most of those 80 reports were found to be pranks or hoaxes done by family members thinking they were going to get some sort of laugh. Now, don't get me wrong, there is absolutely nothing wrong with having an overabundance of caution when it comes to your children. It is an odd idea that we tell our children day after day, do not speak to strangers, do not take anything from strangers, do not eat anything given from strangers, and yet, for some reason, one day a year, we dress them up, we take them house to people we've never met before, and we take candy from them and we allow our children to eat it. It is weird, and I completely understand the idea of having way too much paranoia about the situation. However, maybe it's time we stop using the same myth over and over again just for an excuse to pillage and steal your kids' Halloween candy every year. Next, we have the urban legend of the babysitter and the man upstairs. This is the idea that a lone teenage girl tasked with caring for small children at night receives a taunting phone call from someone claiming to be inside the house. While this case has many different variations of the story and has been used in countless books and movies, it all really stems from just one true crime case. The murder of Janet Christman in March of 1950. Janet was a 13-year-old girl who one fateful Friday night chose to be responsible and babysit for her neighbors rather than going to a party with her friends. Janet's family owned a diner, and while they were doing well, they were by no means rich, and she was taught from a very early age that if she wanted something, she had to work for it and earn it herself. She was actually saving up for a white suit that she saw in a department store, and this is why she chose to babysit that night instead of going to the party, because she wanted the money to finish up her savings fund for that white suit. Around 11:45, the child's mother tried to call home but ended up getting nothing but a busy signal, and really she thought nothing of it. She just assumed that Janet was maybe on the phone talking to her friends or had fallen asleep with the phone out of the hook, and really she just went about her night. After returning home at about 1 a.m., however, she learned the reason. The phone was left dangling off the hook, and Janet's body was laying nearby. There had been quite a struggle. Janet put up a hell of a fight. The crime scene spanned over 2 separate rooms. However, eventually, the perpetrator overpowered Janet and she was strangled to death and raped. Thankfully, the child she was watching slept through the entire ordeal and was never harmed. The killer was never caught, and the case is still open to this day. Now, the last urban legend that I'd like to talk about today is the killer clown. The idea has been used in literature since the 1800s, from Catull Mendez to Edgar Allan Poe to Batman's The Joker comics and Stephen King's It and even Scooby-Doo. Probably the most real-life case of the killer clown is John Wayne Gacy, who was accused and sentenced for raping and murdering small boys in 1978. Though he did not actually commit any of these murders, in his clown costume or his persona of Pogo the Clown. There is, of course, also the irrational fear of clowns, which I personally completely understand. Clowns are terrifying. They're happy and they don't look happy and it's creepy. This is known as coulrophobia. Coulrophobia. Okay. This irrational fear of clowns is known as coulrophobia, which many of these pop culture references are actually based on, trying to elicit a fear from people that has absolutely no basis and cannot be explained, yet it is always there for many of us, including myself. True sightings of these murderous clowns with weapons are surprisingly not rare at all. Clowns in vans trying to lure children away from parks and schools were first reported in the 80s and seem to pop up all over the country every few years. Sightings of clowns were also reported to be a part of satanic rituals that really, that's a whole other case in itself. Of course, who can forget in 2016 when all over the country, for some odd reason, clowns carrying weapons were just popping up everywhere, terrifying people, causing really mass chaos in some cities, and were just walking around towns. And the fact that at some point it just stopped and we all just went on living life like it never happened. Like, really? What happened there? Could somebody please tell me that I'm not crazy for wondering why we all just stopped talking about it? If you go to Google and search the topic, there are pages and pages of listings about pranksters and truly murderous clown sightings alike from all over the world. Sorry if you can hear my dogs. There is no clear origin of this urban legend, but it is very painfully obvious that this is way more than just folklore. So those are all of the urban legends that I want to talk about today. If you have any thoughts or feelings, feel free to leave them down below. I would prefer if they were nice, but honestly, it's the internet. If you're enjoying Halloween week so far, please hit that subscribe button and I'll catch you in tomorrow's video. Bye.